Hello, I'm continuing my reviews on the Star Trek movies with Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Now, this is an interesting one because, from what I heard, this one almost never happened because Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, was, for the most part, a critical and commercial failure, and Paramount really didn't want to make another one because they were afraid this one was going to flop too, and also at this point there was already another Star Trek series on TV called Star Trek The Next Generation, and it turns out a lot of fans were really gravitating more towards the Next Generation series, and also the cast members of the original Star Trek series really weren't getting any younger, and so a lot of people were saying that they really shouldn't make another one, but they ended up making this one, and this is actually considered to be one of the best ones, and I could definitely understand why this is considered to be one of the best Star Trek movies. Now, I can't say it's one of my absolute favorites. Like, I want to say out of the Star Trek movies that feature the original cast of characters, I want to say that Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock are probably my two most favorites, but this one I probably like as much as Voyage Home and the motion picture. Like, it's right up there with those. It's definitely a really good one. Now, this is definitely the most political out of all the Star Trek movies, at least out of the ones that feature the original cast of characters, because, like, this movie deals with a lot of themes like prejudice, and also this movie came out in 1991, which was the end of the Cold War, and you could definitely tell that a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie is supposed to be an allegory to the whole collapse of the Soviet Union and the whole end of the Cold War. So, the film definitely has a lot of political and social commentary, but it definitely doesn't hit you over the head with it or shove it down your throat. All the political undertones in this movie are definitely done very subtly, in my opinion. And also this movie does kind of bridge the gap between the original series and Star Trek The Next Generation, because in the show The Next Generation, the Klingon Empire are actually allies with Starfleet, and in the original series, of course, the Klingons were Starfleet's enemies, but in this movie you see the Klingons and Starfleet start to become allies, and pretty much this movie explains how they became allies, and really the movie kind of bridges the gap between the original series and Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, I mentioned basically the plot of the movie is it begins where a Klingon moon called Praxis ends up exploding, and this really fucks up the atmosphere of the Klingons' planet, and you realize that the Klingons now only have 50 years left of oxygen on their planet, and you realize that they're pretty much fucked, basically, and now they pretty much are dependent on Starfleet, and you really start to see peace relations kind of start to arise between the Klingon Empire and Starfleet, and the film does deal a lot with prejudice, and you realize that a lot of members of Starfleet, including Kirk and some of the other members of the Enterprise's crew, really do not like the idea of the Federation becoming allies with the Klingons, and you realize that a lot of Kirk's prejudices are really because the Klingons are responsible for the death of his son, which happened in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, but But basically what happens is, you realize that a lot of people really don't like the idea of the Klingons becoming friends with the Federation, but what happens is Kirk ends up getting accused of assassinating a Klingon politician, and what happens is Kirk and McCoy, they both get accused of because they try to save this guy because it appears that he was assassinated by two members of the Enterprise's crew. But what happens is, so Kirk and McCoy are accused of this and they're put on trial, and what happens is now this is severely affecting any chances of there being peace between the Klingon Empire and Starfleet. And what happens is, while Kirk and McCoy are on trial because of this, you have Spock, who's now conducting his own investigation to try to find out who actually assassinated this Klingon politician. And so the film is also kind of a mystery in a way, kind of like a murder mystery. You basically have Spock playing Sherlock Holmes in a way. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, is a really good one. Definitely, I wouldn't compare this to Wrath of Khan or Search for Spock, which are two of my favorites, but I could see definitely why this is considered to be one of the best ones. And this is also directed by Nicholas Meyer, who also directed Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Now, what's interesting is, in the show Star Trek The Next Generation, there is actually a Klingon who is a member of the crew of the Enterprise in the show Next Generation named Worf, and there's a character in the movie when Kirk and McCoy are on trial, their lawyer is actually Worf's grandfather, played by the same actor who played Worf in the show Next Generation. Also you have Christopher Plummer in the movie playing a Klingon named Chan. I think I'm saying his name right. Chan or Chain or Chan, I think it is. Christian Slater actually has a brief appearance in the movie as well. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country is definitely a really good one. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it, and that's my review on Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and bye.